A crisp autumn evening in 1941, the kind where the leaves whisper secrets underfoot, a young woman, vibrant and full of life, slips out of her family's grand home, her heart racing with anticipation. She's meeting a man, a charming stranger introduced through whispers in high society circles. They laugh over dinner, his eyes holding promises she can't quite decipher. But as the night deepens, something shifts. A fog descends, not just in the air, but in her mind. She stumbles home, fragments of memory slipping away like smoke. The next morning, her family notices the change, a wildness in her eyes, a defiance they can't control. Whispers turn to plans in shadowed rooms, and then she's gone, taken to a place where sharp instruments await, promising to fix what was never broken. When she returns, the woman they knew is erased, replaced by a hollow shell wandering empty halls. This isn't fiction. This is the buried truth of one American family's darkest secret, a story erased from history books, waiting for you to uncover it. Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. In the shadowed corners of American history, where the elite guard their skeletons with iron fists, lies the tale of Rosemary Kennedy, a name you might recognize, but a soul you never truly knew. Born in 1918 into the glittering Kennedy dynasty, Rosemary was the third child of Joseph and Rose Kennedy, a family destined for power but built on secrets that would rot them from within. From the outside, she was the picture of privilege, porcelain skin, dark curls, and a smile that could light up the ballrooms of Boston. But beneath that facade, Rosemary struggled with what we now understand as intellectual disabilities, perhaps from a difficult birth that starved her brain of oxygen for precious minutes. Her parents, obsessed with perfection, saw her as a flaw in their flawless lineage. Joseph Kennedy, the ambitious patriarch, demanded excellence from his children. His sons, Jack, Bobby, Teddy, were groomed for greatness, their every step calculated toward political dominance. Rosemary, however, was different. She was slow to learn, prone to mood swings, and as she entered her teens, a rebellious fire ignited within her. Rosemary craved normalcy, the simple joys denied by her family's relentless drive. In the 1930s, as the Kennedys rose in society, she was shuttled between elite schools and convents, her issues hidden like a shameful heirloom. Teachers noted her frustration, her outbursts, but also her kindness, her love for music and dance. Yet, Joseph viewed her as a liability, a potential scandal that could derail his dreams for his sons. By her early 20s, Rosemary's spirit chafed against the constraints. She began sneaking out, seeking connections beyond the gilded cage. Whispers in family letters, long sealed in archives, reveal a young woman desperate for love, for acceptance. She wrote poetry, awkward but heartfelt, dreaming of a life unbound. But in an era when mental health was taboo, especially for women of status, her behaviors were labeled deviant. Doctors, paid handsomely by Joseph, diagnosed her with everything from agitated depression to vague nervous conditions. Treatments ranged from isolation to experimental hormones, all failing to mold her into the docile daughter he desired. As World War Roman II loomed, the Kennedys' public image intensified. Rosemary, now 23, was blooming into a beautiful woman, but her independence terrified her father. She attended teas and parties, but her social awkwardness led to mishaps, forgotten names, impulsive remarks. Worse, she started forming attachments, innocent flirtations that Joseph saw as threats. That night in 1941, Rosemary slipped out of the Kennedy estate in Brookline, Massachusetts, her heart pounding with a mix of thrill and defiance. She'd met him at a society event, a man with sharp eyes and smoother words, someone who didn't treat her like a fragile relic. They dined at a discreet restaurant, hidden from prying eyes, where gaslights flickered like conspirators. He spoke of dreams beyond Boston's suffocating elite, and for once Rosemary felt seen. But as they walked through the foggy streets, her memory blurred. A drink too strong, a strange weight in her limbs. She stumbled home, her thoughts unraveling. By dawn, her laughter was gone, replaced by a restless edge her family couldn't ignore. Joseph Kennedy, ever vigilant, saw scandal brewing. A daughter who wandered, who felt too deeply, was a risk he wouldn't tolerate. Whispers of her instability grew louder, fed by doctors who profited from the family's desperation. Rosemary's diary entries, later found in a locked drawer, spoke of a man who promised freedom, but also of a night she couldn't fully recall. Something had shifted inside her, and the Kennedys were determined to bury it. The solution came from a new, chilling frontier in medicine, psychosurgery. Dr. Walter Freeman, a charismatic neurologist, was peddling a procedure called the lobotomy, marketed as a cure for everything from depression to defiance. Joseph, enthralled by the promise of control, saw it as the perfect fix. In November 1941, at age 23, Rosemary was admitted to George Washington University Hospital. The details, pieced together from medical records and hushed family accounts, are harrowing. Freeman, with his ice-pick-like instrument, cut into her brain through her eye sockets, severing connections in her frontal lobe. No anesthesia beyond a local injection. She was awake, reciting poems until her voice slowed, then stopped. The Kennedys were told it would calm her, make her manageable. Instead, it shattered her. When she emerged, the vibrant woman who loved dancing and secret dates was gone. She couldn't speak coherently, her movements jerky, her mind locked in a fog. The family, horrified yet complicit, hid her away, first in a private facility, then in a Wisconsin institution for decades. The public was fed lies about her seclusion. While her siblings climbed to fame, her existence erased from their narrative. Joseph never spoke of it, and Rose, her mother, wrote in her memoirs of a tragic accident, never admitting the truth. The lobotomy wasn't just a medical failure. It was a betrayal, a calculated act to preserve the Kennedy image at the cost of Rosemary's soul. Her story was buried, her name whispered only in the family's darkest moments, a ghost haunting their legacy. If you're still watching, you're already braver than most. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if this was your bloodline? The Kennedy family's silence wasn't just about shame, it was about power. Rosemary's lobotomy, performed in a sterile room under Freeman's cold hands, was the ultimate act of control, a warning to anyone who dared to deviate. But the story doesn't end with her confinement. In the Wisconsin institution, St. Coletta's, Rosemary lived in a strange limbo, cared for by nuns who knew her as the Kennedy girl, but never the full truth. She was taught simple tasks, folding clothes, planting flowers, but the spark that once defined her was gone. Visitors, rare and carefully vetted, noted her vacant stare, her halting speech. Yet, in fleeting moments, she'd hum old tunes or clutch a rosary, as if fragments of her old self lingered, trapped behind the scars in her brain. Meanwhile, the Kennedys built their empire. Jack became president, Bobby a crusader, Teddy a senator, all while their sister's existence was a footnote, her medical records sealed, her letters burned. But cracks appeared. Eunice, Rosemary's sister, quietly founded the Special Olympics in 1968, inspired by her lost sibling. It was a silent apology, a way to give voice to those society discarded. Yet, even this gesture couldn't undo the family's complicity in Rosemary's erasure. The man Rosemary met that night in 1941 remains a shadow in the story, his identity lost to time, or perhaps deliberately erased. Some speculate he was a suitor from a rival family, others a conman exploiting her vulnerability. Her diary, partially recovered, hints at a name, James or John, but the pages are torn, the ink smudged. What's clear is that the date marked a turning point. Her family's fear of her autonomy, her potential to disrupt their carefully curated image, drove them to drastic measures. The lobotomy wasn't just about curing her, it was about silencing a woman who dared to want more. In the broader tapestry of 1940s America, Rosemary's story reflects a chilling reality. Thousands underwent lobotomies, often women, often for little more than nonconformity. Freeman performed over 500 procedures, his ice pick method celebrated as progress. Hospitals became factories of compliance, stripping away personalities to preserve social order. Rosemary's case, though, was unique. Her family's wealth and influence ensured her suffering was hidden. Her tragedy spun into a myth of illness. Decades later, when reporters began digging, the Kennedys deflected, claiming Rosemary was happy in her seclusion. But the truth, pieced together from nurses' accounts and declassified files, paints a different picture, a woman betrayed by those she trusted most, her voice stolen to protect a dynasty. Rosemary lived until 2005, spending over 60 years in St. Coletta's, a prisoner of her family's choices. In her later years, her siblings visited sporadically, their guilt palpable but unspoken. The Kennedy legacy, presidents, senators, philanthropists, was built on her sacrifice, a truth they could never fully face. When she died at 86, the family issued a brief statement, calling her an inspiration, but the world knew little of her story. It wasn't until historians and journalists, decades later, began unearthing letters, medical records, and testimonies that the full horror emerged. Rosemary's lobotomy wasn't just a medical tragedy. It was a deliberate act to erase a woman who didn't fit the mold. Her story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How many others were silenced in the name of propriety? How many families hid their imperfect kin to preserve power? This isn't just the story of one woman. It's a mirror held up to an era that valued image over humanity. As you sit with this, think about the secrets your own family might carry, the truths buried in old letters or locked drawers. Rosemary's ghost lingers, not just in the Kennedy saga, but in every untold story of those society deemed unfit. Her date in 1941 wasn't just a night. It was the spark that ignited a tragedy, one that whispers to us still. Some truths, once buried, demand to be unearthed.